Nicole Wallace, and the name of this presentation is Transitioning from Work to Stay-at-Home Mom or Stay-at-Home Parent. We're going to talk about some ready-to-use strategies to help you manage the change. Just to give you some background on myself, again, my name is Nicole Wallace. I'm a wife, a mom, and I'm also a licensed clinical mental health therapist located in Raleigh-Durham area of North Carolina. I've been married for 28 years, and we have a blended family of 6 children ranging from ages of 26 to 12. I'm also a U.S. Army veteran, a former school teacher, and a school counselor. I present with PMADS when I had my first child, and we were both in the hospital for a period of time. And so I understand the struggles that many moms go through of juggling different things and having to take care of yourself as well. I chose to stay at home twice, once with my first set of older kids, and then we, 10 years later, had another set of kids, and I stayed home with them as well. There's my lovely darlings, and there they are again, all older now. So some things that people who stay at home have in common is that these days, men and women are choosing to stay home, but there is still a discrepancy that women usually are more likely to be the stay-at-home parent over men. Over the past 30 years, there's been a change in that, and it has fluctuated a bit. And then the pandemic showed a rise that over 58% rise in parents that decided to stay home with their children or make a different job choice in which they could stay home. So what leads to being a stay-at-home parent or a stay-at-home mom for when we talk about that majority group, but we do know that both groups can do it. Some women choose to stay home. It's an option, and they've decided to do that just based off their own needs or concerns or desires to spend more time with their children. For other people, it could be a financial concern. Daycare can be very expensive. I know when we had our second set of children, we had 2 children that were 18 months apart, and the financial concerns were there for us as well. The other part is flexibility to work and care for children. If you feel like you may not have the flexibility to take time off or be home at a certain time, then you might decide to make a change which would allow you more flexibility to be home with your child. The last one, children with special needs, specialized needs. When I had my first daughter, she was 2 months early. I had suffered from preeclampsia, and she wound up in the NICU for a long period of time. And I also was in the ICU for a bit. And before I had her, I was telling everybody at work that I was going to have the baby and return to work as soon as possible. Well, when we went through the ordeal of having to be in ICU and the NICU, my whole life changed. Our whole lives changed. And I started to think about some different choices that I could make in order to be home for her, to get her feeding schedule on track. She still had a tube that was coming from her milk or her bottle to her nose. And it was just a lot. And I thought I needed to be home and be there with her. So what are the struggles in leaving work to stay at home? So some of the things that come to mind, the first one is loss of skill set. Sometimes you might think, well, if I do decide to stay home, especially for an extended period, that I may lose some of the skill set, especially if you're in a specialized field. Another concern may be lack of knowledge about what your role is as a stay-at-home parent or stay-at-home mom. What does that actually look like, especially if you've never had a parent yourself that stayed at home? My mom was a single mom. She worked 2 jobs. And so I never really saw what it would mean to be a stay-at-home parent. And I had to learn what that looked like and find some role models. Next one, transitioning your family life to a new schedule. Sometimes when if you choose to stay home, it may mean that maybe if one person used to be the go-to person for cooking dinner, now the person who's at home is responsible for that, and they weren't before. It may mean some of the duties that you used to have to run around and pick up things. Maybe now the person who's out and about and out of the house more is doing some of those things. Maybe it's cleaning duties. My husband and I used to take turns cleaning at times, but when I became the primary stay-at-home person, that became part of my primary duties, was to take care of the common areas like the bathroom, the kitchen, and things like that. So having some conversations about the new schedule, what does that look like? A big one, number 4, loss of identity. Many times our identity is attached to our job, and we feel a lot about who we are. Like if you ask somebody about who they are, they might be like, I'm a school teacher, or I'm a police officer, or I'm an architect. And then you lose that role in some respects because you decided to take a break from it. So what does that mean for you? And that can come with a lot of emotions, and we're going to talk about that later on in this presentation. Another big one, isolation. Being a stay-at-home parent can be one of the most isolating jobs that's out there. You're home all day with the little people, and you may not see another adult for quite a bit. So what do you do about that? And we're going to talk about that some more as well. Next one, are my skills in my profession as useful as a stay-at-home parent? And so this is one of the ones that I really wanted to key in on, that there are some things that you can bring from your career or your work life into your job as a stay-at-home parent. A lot of times people think of stay-at-home as if they've never had, any formal training in being a teacher or a daycare provider, like it's just going to be chaos. These kids and I are just going to be running amok, or we'll just be on some lackadaisical schedule. But the truth is that a lot of the things that you used at work, if you use structure in your day and you had a calendar and a schedule, you can bring that to your new role as a stay-at-home mom. If you used to write out plans, now, not to say your plans are going to look exactly like you thought, but if that was one of your things, you can now use that as well, like to plan out your day, plan out your week. Be aware that you will have to be flexible because oftentimes the children drive the train or drive the bus on what things are going to be happening, but you can at least have a plan, and that might make you feel a little more stable each day. Networking, where you used to go out to coffee with a friend or meet for coffee or lunch, I would encourage you to continue to do that as a stay-at-home parent. That might be your time to be social, to find other moms. Maybe there's some affinity group. I'm in a book club. That was something I got to do, when I had some free time, or when my husband could watch the children. I kept up with those things so I could have a little bit of social life in my life during that time. Keeping up on your certifications and licensures, and remembering your goals, remembering what it is that you want to do with your future and your career, as well as what your goals are for your children and your family, can be helpful. So one of the questions that you might ask yourself, especially around that the thought processing about goals, is, do I want to try something new? Maybe being a stay-at-home parent is going to allow you to investigate some other parts of yourself. Maybe you go experiment, take a class at the technical school, or maybe you take an online course, or trying some new things out when your schedule allows for it. Maybe it's volunteer work. I know as my children got older and they got closer to going to grade school, I was able to do volunteer work in an area or field that I was interested in. And that gave me a little leeway. It also was a resume builder when I decided to return back to work. Maybe you have a side hustle. Lots of parents have this, something you've been doing as your passion project, and maybe being a stay-at-home parent will allow you to spend more time doing it. I've seen people, everything from people selling jewelry to people who were legal assistants to folks, people making products, all those things might become available to you. What are your resources? You know, we really have to tap into our resources. Again, when we think about how isolating the job of a stay-at-home parent can be, having to combat that is one of the ways, is building your resource list. Who are your friends, your family support? And you might be surprised. I had a friend who called me up one day when my youngest one was a few months old and said, my children are all teenagers. I want to spend time with your baby. I'm going to come over once a month and give you a night out. You can go on a date night. You can go shopping, whatever it is you want to do. I just want to hang out with the kids and give you that time. And it was so valuable to me. And it only happened once a month, and it was very much needed, and I accepted it. And that's a big part of that too, being willing to accept help. Have some family discussions about the changes in your role. I know I had to have discussions with the older kids when we decided to add on younger children 9 to 10 years later after they were born, about what this would mean, how things would change around our house. And so the more you can have those open discussions, it might free up some of that stress as well. Finding support groups. Some of the ones I listed, MOPS, Mocha Moms, but there are lots of them out there. The last part, meetups, is a great place to find some support groups, or groups that are about your social interests, but also mom groups. Going to the gym or the local community center, sometimes they will have activities which involve childcare or which involve your children, and that's a place also to meet other people as well. I was at the gym one day and I ran into a lady at the water cooler after an aerobics class, and she was telling me that she had just moved here and she lived maybe 2 minutes from me. And I was like, oh, you're my new best friend. We found out we had children the same age, and so we were able to like get together, go for walks. But I had to really, put myself out there, which can be difficult if that's not your personality. But just making that offer, opening that door for that first coffee or that first walk could mean that you have somebody who will be there for you, and that you could be there for them, and somebody to spend time with, and the kids can get a little more social interaction as well. So this one, as the counselor in me, just loves this question. How are you managing your emotions? Because a lot of times we talk about the practical, but we don't always talk about what's happening inside of us emotionally, which can really affect how we get up and how we spend our day. So developing a form of self-check. Maybe it's journaling in the morning or in the evening about how your day went, what your thoughts are. Maybe it's implementing a self-care plan, like on Wednesdays when the other parent gets home, I'm just gonna take a bath and I'm just gonna relax. And one day a week, I get to have that alone time. Maybe it's increasing your spiritual practice or developing one if you didn't have one. This might be the time to start tapping into that. Maybe it's scheduling family time. So I always say there's 3 main times you should have in your life: family time, couple time, and then alone time. Because all 3 bring something different to you and help you be a better version of yourself. And just making sure, and maybe they don't all happen equally in the same month or the same day or even the same 6-month span, but just being aware that you need to give attention to each aspect of your life. And the last one, give yourself grace and allow yourself to just have a good cry some days. Sometimes it might be hard. I know there are people who've said, oh, that was the best time of my life. I never had a problem when I was a stay-at-home mom. But for me, that was not always true. There were days that I was super bored because I wasn't doing things to activate my brain, or there were days where I just didn't get a chance to talk to anybody outside my house. And there were just days that I felt like, did I make the right choice? And so being able to being able to be in those emotions, just letting them out can be very helpful, rather than trying to contain it all and ignore those feelings, because they will pass. Or if you need to get some professional help around that, that's also key. I didn't list it here, but I think, that's also a thing that you could investigate if you're feeling like many days you're having multiple days of not feeling well, getting in contact with a therapist or someone professional or your primary care doctor might be needed to discuss that, because one of the things that we learn through education about postpartum feelings is that they can last for over a year. So, in wrapping up, some of the questions that came up during the initial live presentation, I decided to add them in here just because I thought there were some really good questions that I didn't touch on myself in the presentation that I put together. One of the first ones was, how can I find more in-person activities now that everything's so virtual? This was a great question because it's true, you might go online and you're searching for some sort of mom group or connection with other parents, and then you find out that the only way to do it is like through some Zoom meeting or through some virtual webinar, and what you were really looking for was was some personal interaction or to get outside or something like that. And so my thing is, one, if you're not a social media person, I just encourage you to go ahead and get on some sort of platform. Maybe it's not something you do every day, but social media really has a lot of the opportunities. People are advertising there. So don't give up hope. Look on there and look for those ads. The other one is to try to find people or moms or other parents to engage with organically in your environment. Like I told you about the mom I met at the water cooler, just being able to say to her, hey, let's go for a walk one day since you live so close to me. And that means you might have to put yourself out there a little more, but it might be worth it in the end. So just don't give up. Look around, look in your community. There might be more things than besides just the virtual meetings. That meetup site too, meetups.com, sometimes they will put the different that they're having it virtually or in person, and you can look through there as well for different places to connect with others. The last one, how do I manage the loss of income or the feelings of guilt around the loss of income? And this was a really great question as well. One of the things that I said to the mom who brought this up was that reminding yourself when you're having those feelings of guilt that your children will only be this age, this one time, right? Like, I know it's a big hit and it could be a big change financially, and you might have to make a lot of sacrifices in the way you live your life. But if you feel like it's in line with the values that you want, with the time that you want to spend with your children, then letting go of that guilt and just focusing on that part as much as you can. And then to manage the loss of income, sometimes we have to also manage what our expectations are and what we consider to be needs and wants. I know with my first daughter, like every new mom, I was like, oh, everything's got to be new and I've got to go and get this new thing, or I need to put this on the registry and this I need it directly from this store. And when I got to my second child, I was like, we can go to the thrift shop and we can go to consignment sales and we can find the little things that are only going to last 6 months or 3 months because the baby's going to grow out of it so fast. And I don't need to spend that kind of money or initial investment on something that's not going to be in my house that long. Or maybe where you used to go out for that steak dinner at a really high-end restaurant on date night, maybe you're adjusting it and you're going to Chick-fil-A and you're just like, we're just loving having time together rather than focusing on the atmosphere in the restaurant and the quality of the restaurant, but you're focusing on each other. So some things to think about. And each of us is different. For each person, it can be different. But when you know that you've taken this time out, you're giving this time to your baby or your group of children, and that time together is so precious and it goes so fast. As you saw in the pictures, of my children. They're growing so fast, and I just am appreciative that I got to be a part of that time with them. You know, daycares can offer a certain quality of care, and then but being at home also offers a certain quality of care, and it's just up to you which one you decide to choose. And if you decided to stay home, then really feeling that and enjoying that time. And I just wish you all the best, and I hope that this has been helpful in processing some of those emotions, and that you've gotten some tips that you can use going forward. Take care.